Hey guys, how we doing? Episode 2 of ZFK Talks. Today I wanted to offer some insight and offer some value on the topic of whether or not freelancing is for you, specifically photo and video, because that's what I do. So it's not something that happens overnight, and I think it's one of the hardest fields to break into. At the end of the day, what's most important is your portfolio. And in a lot of different businesses, it's so much as selling yourself. Like if you're approachable, a friendly type of person, and people get a good vibe when they're around you, chances are that they will feel like they can trust you to work on a project for them. So with that said, just some general blanket stuff in my experience. I think freelancing is not for you if you are not willing to be in a high risk kind of lifestyle starting out, especially if you're going to make a go of it. With that as your only job, I strongly recommend against that, because you'll be broke in a week flat. Starting out as a freelancer and getting jobs that pay is almost unheard of. How can you make money when you have no portfolio? So essentially, back to the high risk and the financial instability. Another issue with the finances that you may find once you do get the ball rolling is that you may constantly have a backlog of payments at all times. To this day, I still have that issue. And I think that it is an issue even for the big kahunas, big players in the industry. Payments often have to go through different hoops and whatnot till they make it to your account. Sometimes whoever you're working for is waiting on money, you name it. So it's a constant problem, and it sucks, but with it being high risk, high reward, it is worth it in terms of how much more money you can make versus having a regular job or even working for someone else. You're best to try and make your own business at the end of the day. So like I stated in the last video, saying that I'm a Niagara local and kind of talking about how this global epidemic kind of affects Niagara and hits it hard. What I would strongly recommend, because it's a job that you can do anywhere in the world and there is no shortage of these jobs, is get yourself a serving job. It has so much to offer to you if you're a freelancer. That serving job was so substantial in ensuring that I was able to meet my day-to-day financial requirements and monthly bills and expenses, and importantly also being able to invest into myself and get the kind of gear that I needed in order to facilitate jobs. Another really great thing with the serving industry too is if you are someone that isn't already a talker, friendly type that is able to break the ice with anyone, serving and being in that industry every day and being from table to table and talking to your guests is huge. Teaches you all about how to properly treat people in terms of service. You name it. It will make you a service machine. So by the time you get to having your own business, you'll know how to properly handle positive and negative receptions and kind of make people happy and not lose your head, essentially. Sometimes you get frustrating requests, and when you know how to maneuver and kind of meet in the middle ground and make your client and yourself happy, your life's going to be a lot easier. So, like I said, I do recommend getting that serving job for supplementing your income. If you are under 18, no worries. There are plenty of busing jobs out there where you can move into serving, and make sure you get yourself a busing job that tips well. I had my fair share of busing jobs when I was younger, and some of them didn't tip very much at all. Others were all right. Um, the place that I just finished serving at for the last 4 years was incredible for tips. We would tip out the bussers direct, and these guys could sometimes make more money than the servers at the end of the night. So with everything in photo and video, as far as gear goes, being so expensive, and this is the truth. It honestly feels like there's always a never-ending shopping list of things that you need to get your jobs done. Having that cash in hand at the end of the night is going to go a long, long way. So I guess the next step in terms of getting started would be try to get your hands on some gear. Lots of ways to do it. If you got friends or family that have some gear, or you know somebody, maybe go out and shoot with them. Again, I recommend getting your own gear so you don't have to bother others and rent gear. There's 2 different ways that I would recommend getting your hands on some gear and experimenting with that. Both avenues are great. I did both, and I sure as hell wouldn't be doing all the work I am doing if it weren't for either of these. So when I was in high school, I took an extra year of school for 12B specifically to do a co-op. With Niagara region not really being a big mecca like, say, Toronto or New York, finding a co-op was pretty difficult. And I probably went and called 15 different places, which was all the places in Niagara. And I got to the bottom of the list, and basically that was Giant Sheet Creative. Shout out Brad Moore. He's the owner of that company, and they're doing great. And he really took me under his wing and showed me how things are done. And I honestly don't know where I would be without that co-op. So I thank him, and I think you should do the same thing. Mentorship is huge. You can learn a lot of things that you can't from online courses in school by having your hands on the gear and being on site at shoots. It's really invaluable. It's priceless at the end of the day. So the other thing I would recommend specifically for photography is that you go to school. For photography in particular, the thing that kind of separates the professionals from the amateurs is strobe lighting, in my opinion. Elegantly done strobe lighting always wins. It looks professional. Not a lot of people can replicate that look. It's just not a look that can be done with ambient lighting. And in the commercial fields, that's how things are done. It's a professional way. There's a science to it. The gear is not easy to learn on your own. So going to school and ascertaining those skill sets really puts you up on another level by the time you get out of school. In particular, for me, I went to Fanshawe College in London, Ontario. Had a great time out there, and I really believe that they must be the best or one of the best photography programs in the province of Ontario, if not the country. It was fantastic. The professors there, their advice and their hands-on help was invaluable. And what you're really paying for when you get that tuition is basically your 2 years to get your diploma. You're paying to have 24-hour access to professional photography studios, and you're able to rent any kind of lens, camera body you want, you name it. They've got all the stuff. And being able to experiment and kind of develop a style and portfolio in college from 2016 to 2018 really set me up for success when I got out of school. Like I said in my last video, 2018, when I graduated, I was working a bit, but I was also serving. By 2019, just a year later, I cut down on 1 or 2 days a week at my serving job and working full-time in the industry. And 2020, unfortunately, I lost that job because they closed, but it didn't have much longer left with me anyways. Working like 7 days a week. It's the most insane but most rewarding way to work. in regards to going to school for cinematography video, um, I can't say I'd recommend. That's where I started before I got into photography. And I think that filmmaking is not worth going to school for. You're better off getting out there and finding some sort of way to get your hands on and get some experience in that industry. And another great thing that we have that we can utilize now is things like YouTube, making your own short films and videos and whatnot. Really, really goes a long way in getting yourself some experience. So the next thing that is super important, that goes hand in hand with getting your hands on gear, perhaps going to school, and finding yourself a mentor or some sort of co-op internship, is building your portfolio. Like I said earlier, that's the most important thing you got right there. This is a totally subjective field, and when people like your work, they will pay for it. If you don't have any work to show them, then what's the use, right? You have to have something to show people in order to sell yourself. So I guess in terms of building that portfolio, still do this whether or not you are in school, but basically, if you're not in school, you should be trying to put yourself out there and tell people that you are starting a freelance business doing photo and video. And when people know and they see you experimenting and posting things online, they'll ask you to do things. And a lot of the time it will be free. So my advice in that regard would be to say yes. Say yes as much as you can. Don't allow yourself to be taken advantage of, but take all the opportunities you can possibly get and ensure that you get the most value out of these jobs so you can add them to your portfolio and get further work. Leverage it so you get paid later on new jobs. You can even do online kind of ads for free shoots. If you want to do portraits and stuff, there is no shortage of pretty girls and male models, you name it, that want to get their portfolio built for free too. It's a win-win situation. You can go back and forth on social media, tag each other, share each other's stuff, and you both get exposure. To add to saying yes and getting out there and taking advantage of opportunities and doing as much as you can to add to your portfolio and online presence. Most of all, make sure that you're patient. This is a long game. This does not happen overnight. And even the people that are professional in Hollywood and stuff, directors, you name it, or professional commercial photographers, we are always still learning. At the end of the day, you need to accept that, take criticism lightly, but also make sure that you take that criticism to improve yourself. And most importantly, embrace failure. Failure is something that stings, but at the end of the day, it's the best teacher in the world. Typically, when you fall hard, you just got to get back up and make sure that you don't fall the same way again. But also be aware that you are going to fall in other ways in the future. There's a million different ways to goof up your projects, and be sure that it will happen. No one's perfect in this industry, and by embracing failure, you will become a better person because of it. So the last kind of subtopic that I wanted to talk about in this video is your branding. Branding, similar to the portfolio, is one of the most important things. It's your kind of like perceived value. You want to figure out, what is your brand identity? What is your business name going to be? You need to think of something crafty and memorable that people will remember. And that goes for your logo, your colors, your name as well. My business name is ZFK Visuals. I would highly recommend against using a short form of your name. I like mine, but I see a lot of people that do it and it just doesn't ring that well. Maybe not maybe, I'm definitely biased when I think ZFK sounds good. And I use the underscore as well. Any kind of offshoot brand that I put out there that's under the umbrella of ZFK Visuals also has an underscore. So I guess that was my crafty flair. Um, but yeah, figuring out your brand identity and kind of where you want to attack. Um, Figuring out whether or not you want to have a particular niche market that you are going to be most most catering to. That's also important. You could do all photo or all video, both, weddings, product, portraits, you name it. There's all kinds of little subsets that you can master. For me in particular, I'm kind of a jack of all trades, but I do recommend, if you're starting out, try and really master a certain subset niche and be the best at that, and everyone will come to you for it. Maybe worry about branching out and doing different kind of jobs at a later point. So again, with branding, at the end of the day, I've been in the industry for maybe 5 years, 6 unofficially, and I still don't actually have a website. It's something that I need to work on for 2020. But what I have used over the years is social media. I think that's a no-brainer. Like, how else are we gonna get our content out there to the masses? So, in particular, I think you should most utilize Instagram because that's the most visual platform. YouTube is great too for long format stuff like this, entertainment or informative. Facebook is also good to have a presence on there, but at the end of the day, Instagram is where it's at. You want to build your following there and kind of spread outwards. Make sure that you do maintain those other social accounts too, and you could even do TikTok. Um, I think TikTok kind of is more for the meme and the silly stuff, but there are definitely people out there that are utilizing things like TikTok to gain a following in the photo and video fields. I'm not on it, but I know a lot of people are. There's some opportunity there to be had. So with social media, again, get your domain. Make sure that you set up a proper kind of logo for your profile picture. Make your bio catchy, or put out something out there that defines you. And when you post, make sure you're using all 30 hashtags to get your maximum exposure. And another thing that is important with Instagram too, in terms of exposure, is you can do all kinds of different little tricks. A lot of it has to do with your networking and ability to communicate with each other. Um, Go out there, search up your favorite hashtags, go and comment on a whole bunch of them. Leave meaningful comments so people are almost forced to reply to you. Follow people. Make sure that you're following vice versa. When you are trying to build a high follow count with a low following count, I guarantee you you'll fail. The algorithm does not allow that anymore. So you need to accommodate and make sure that you are cross-following with people, building a community, getting a name out there, and making sure that people remember your page. So the most important thing for getting people to remember your page is your grid. What I do is I use an app called Preview. That is kind of the final step in order to make sure that things are squared up and proper when I put them on my feed. It's essentially a simulated Instagram grid offline. And before I go in there, I actually go in Photoshop and I slide in the pictures into a grid that I made from scratch in there and move them around and see what the best kind of sequence is for them. For me in particular, if you go on my feed, you will see that I take great care in my feed, and I've even planned it years in advance. Right now, I am in the winter section of my feed, and before that was autumn and summer. So essentially, kind of where I plan to go from there is I have all my spring stuff shot, just needs to be edited. Then I have more summer stuff, and then after that, I would like to break the season's theme and move into posting commercial stuff, because I do a lot of commercial work, but mostly real estate and homes, home developers, and I want to showcase that so that people are more aware that I do that. Your grid is probably your greatest online asset. People really, really like and take a notice when it's properly done with elegance. And another thing to keep in mind with that when you decide to take your grid very seriously on Instagram is you have to post in threes, because otherwise it will throw your grid off. So it's not as simple as just shooting something that day and posting it. Sometimes you need to go into shoots thinking, what are my 3 key shots that I want to showcase on my Insta? Or trying to find old shots / mixing it with new shots and formulate some sort of 3-post grid that you can put together. Then you got to get your captions, your 30 hashtags, like I said. You can even tag related pages and stuff for extra exposure. Having people repost your stuff, make sure they credit it. It's all great ways to get more traffic onto your page. So I guess the last thing I will mention before we wrap up this video, it's important to stay organized. Keep your computer and files organized. Build a database on external hard drives. My favorite 3 ways to stay organized is basically the agenda. The agenda keeps track of what's going on in the future and what's happened in the past if I need to go back and reference things. Another really big one is sticky notes. I love sticky notes. You will find sticky notes of every size and color on my desk. And the great thing about that is it allows you to write down your thoughts and stick it on your desk with the rest of your stuff. And that way it won't fall through the cracks. You'll have to pick up that sticky note at some point and say, shit, I got to do that. The last way that I stay organized on a short-term basis would be using reminders on my phones. I'll set up reminders with dates and times in which they need to pop up. It's usually the same day I write it down, or the next day or the next 2 days. And that also helps me keep organized on the short-term scale. So I'm guessing this video will be about 20 minutes. If you've been here with me the entire time, I thank you. And make sure to appease that YouTube algorithm. Comment, like, and subscribe. And even share this video if you know someone that would like to get started in the freelance photo and video fields. I appreciate you guys checking this out. Make sure that you stay motivated, you build your momentum, get out there and try some new stuff. I wish you luck, and if you ever have any questions, I'm an open book. Shoot me a message, let me know, and I'll do my best to help you out. All right, guys, thanks for checking out ZFK Talks Episode 2. Cheers.